Namaskar everyone. I welcome all our wonderful participants to the TEDxKanke show. And I can already see some bright faces bubbling with energy. This is the fifth TEDxKanke session. This is the fifth TEDxKanke session. And I am Santosh, author of the book Dissolve the Box and co-organizer at TEDxKanke. TEDxKanke is a platform to cultivate ideas worth spreading. It's a brainchild of Rajiv, supported by Kanishka, Kanika, Rashmi, Bijain, and many more. When we were young, degrees were important, and companies used to recruit people based on their degrees. Cut to 2020, there's a huge industry academia gap. And the skill gap is ever widening because what took a decade to change earlier is now changing every moment. And the universities, teachers, farmers, entrepreneurs, and the people at the bottom of the pyramid have not been able to keep pace with the change. It will never be possible to develop a curriculum that is ever evolving and updated. So, what is needed is to develop human capabilities with the power of observation, coping mechanism, proactiveness, analytical aptitude, and most importantly, common sense, amongst many others. Futuristic companies like Google, Tesla, and some Indian companies like Mahindra, Vedanta have started recruiting people with skills irrespective whether they have a university pass-out degree or not. Today we have with us Mr. Manish Kumar, MD and CEO of National Skill Development Corporation. Prior to joining NSDC, he was working with the World Bank as a development economist. He has played an important part in the Swaachh Bharat mission, making India clean. He has also served as the secretary to the Government of Tripura, Home and Power Departments. He was elected as a Mason Fellow at the Harvard University for his leadership in empowering tribal women from remote hills of Tripura. You win a heart, Mr. Manish Kumar, and we welcome you, sir, to the TEDxKanke show on the topic, Future Skills for Workforce in India. Raise your hands to welcome him. So can we start?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you can, please.
Mr. Manish?
Sir, Manish, sir, you have to unmute yourself. Just hold on, I'll try to do it.
Yes, now I'm unmuted. It was telling me that somebody has to unmute me, so that's why I was waiting. Okay, so thank you much for your generous session. It's a great to be here talking to all of you. I have very fond memories of Ranchi, so therefore speaking, although Gurgaon, but speaking to people there, and of course I know that there are people from across the country too, across the world. I was told by Rajiv, so I'm happy that I'm able to speak to quite a number of them. What I'm planning to do is going to speak a bit about how I see the future of the work changing because of certain trends in which India finds itself very uniquely poised in a very positive sense, and how we could actually capitalize on it. That's one part of it. And then, of course, I'll get to the nitty-gritty of what NSDC does, what are the job roles that I see, might be of value to to us in future, and how we need to work around that. So I probably will speak for about 15-20 minutes, and I was told by Rajiv that we could get into question and answer after that. So I'm happy to do in both these ways. So firstly, talking about the broad trend within which um, India finds itself currently, and how we are likely to gain hugely if we take advantage of our situation. There is, I'm quite sure all of us have been listening to this word about demographic divide and the fact that India is passing through it. A period of about 40 years, 45 years that we foresee for India. And we often fear that, oh, will this demographic window of opportunity become a demographic bomb? And there's always that fear that will it lead to more problems than solutions. Happily, we are in such a situation that we are only likely to gain out of it and never lose. Because alongside this big trend of demographic window of opportunity, and for your information, this opportunity, which is cyclical, one of the vice chancellor of a private university told me that the last time this happened in India was when Taj Mahal was built. So apparently it's about 400 years, mega cycle which occurs after about 400 years. And the idea here is that the number of people who are earning far exceeds number of people who are dependent on earning. So therefore, this is a wealth creation moment, and a moment when country creates quite a bit of money for itself, and therefore is able to distribute among its citizens too, as things move forward. Looking at recent examples, if you look at South Korea in 1950, when they entered the demographic window of opportunity, their per capita income was, I think, a little bit below India. And they actually took economists from India to advise them how to move forward. So that was the situation in 1950 for South Korea. They entered the demographic window. 2000, they were out of it because that's like a cycle. And their per capita income had multiplied by 32 times. During the same period, India's per capita had multiplied just by 3 or 4 times. You know, it still remained very, very low. China entered its demographic window of opportunity in 1980, is exiting this year, 2020, by some calculations. And you would have noticed how China rose to be one of the biggest economy of this world. We have entered around 2005, we exit around 2050. That's an approximate kind of calculation. And we have multiplied ourselves almost by 5-6 times. And then the potential for us to expand more is already there. But given this context, you know, the background of it, there is one sweet thing which has come to our advantage at this point, which is this whole life-transforming technology that has arrived because of the discovery of internet and its popularization across the world. So as Santoshi was mentioning, world has moved very differently from 1990s onwards. The pace at which changes have occurred is huge, and it's only expanding, and actually is going faster and faster. Interestingly, as we have entered is that was around when computers first came, and there were a lot of people, you know, the Cassandras of doom, as they call, who always said that, oh, computers have come, people are going to die. Who is going to, look after all these guys? We'll be, completely devastated as economy. That's what many said. If you remember, if you look at early 1990s, there were only 2 things which people scared you about. They scared you about computers, they scared you about AIDS. And both of these were supposed to lead to the end of India. But let's skip to computers. And what we found is by the end of 1990s, India had actually made a name for itself across the world. Some of them pejoratively calling us cyber coolies, but then there are cyber coolies now leading Microsoft, right? So therefore, we need to be proud that the initiative that we took then eventually led to India becoming a huge power.
So the coolie becoming the Malik.
Yes, yeah. So we become a giant powerhouse when it comes to knowledge about IT. And so now why I was bringing these 2 stories together is, in human civilization, there are very few life-transforming technologies. And internet is one of them. It's life-transforming. We are at its infancy. We have not even seen the change that it can bring. we have seen just a bit of it. I think it's like if you have to look at a scale of another 500 years, this 20 years is nothing. So we are just entering its infancy, and at the same time, we are entering the demographic window of opportunity, both of it together. Now, if you are able to ride on both these waves, the multiplier effect it can have is huge for India. And I think the talent that India has, the potential of this happening is extremely, extremely high. And we can see the fact that you have big companies, you have very famous Indians leading big software companies across the world. These are all indication of our capabilities out there. So this is a big picture which I wanted to place before you, before coming down to, okay, what do we do as NSDC, and how can we take advantage of this wave, both demography as well as the life transforming technology, in whose waves we find ourselves currently caught. So when it comes to NSDC, we essentially are doing 2-3 roles. We are surprisingly a developmental banker. We are a bank actually, but a developmental bank. We lend money. We lend money for creating capacity for skill development. Over last 10 years, we have lent to about 409 different companies. We have 650 partners. Some of them are partners without taking money from us, because they take knowledge from us, and therefore they are partners. We have lent about 900 crores to people. Our NPA is about 16%, which is not too high given the situation that banks often find themselves in. And we have created a capacity of skilling 50 lakh people per annum. But what is more important is that we have created a channel through which the knowledge from private sector about what is it on which people should be skilled, that comes to the country. So we have created 37 different sector skill councils, each of them led by some of the biggest name in the industry. So for example, Dr. Naresh Trehan, he leads the Health Sector Skill Council. Similarly, Mr. Chaudhary, the former SCL Tech chairman, he leads the IT. So the ITS is led by somebody else. He leads electronics. So similarly, we have some very famous people leading each of our sector skill council. And knowledge that we get through about 600 corporate leaders sitting in the sector skill councils are knowledge about what is it which is emerging in the industry, whether it is relating to gems and jewelry, whether it is relating to aviation. And what we do with that knowledge is, once we come to know that these are the competencies that are needed by that particular sector, we convert that competency into job roles. So we add up competencies, we create what we call national occupation standards. So just to give you an example, if you wanted to be a mechanic, then one of your competencies should be that if you were to get a pamphlet that describes how the vehicle should be maintained, then you should be able to read it and you should be able to interpret it. So that's a competency. And so like that, we have about 13 to 14 competencies that will constitute a job role. And that's what we therefore put together. And these are then delivered through training centers, about 9,000 of them across the country. And depending upon what level it is. So some of them could be as low as somebody who is a mechanic, and there could be a mechanic who might be dealing with IoT, Internet of Things. So therefore, what he's being taught is very different. And what level 3 is being taught is very different. So you could be at level 7 or level 3. So this whole paraphernalia through which you could be skilled at different levels, we have created that in a way the framework, and then we help our training partners to deliver those trainings to them. So that's broadly what we do in terms of, let's say, putting things together. In terms of government programs also, like PMKVY, we actually roll that out through our training partners. And we have done analytics to see what difference does it make. And we have found that for a person who is unskilled and gets a job, a person who is skilled through us and then gets a job, there is a 15% differential in wages, essentially meaning that the private sector respects somebody who comes with skills and is certified. Interestingly, if you are skilled but not certified because you failed in assessment, you still get 9% more wages, which means that even if you are not as high as a certified person, the industry seems to regard you better that somebody is totally unskilled. So that's the positive side of it. We do our analytics to understand how many people in India are unemployed. We are aware that 2.37 crore of people of India are unemployed. 2.10 crore of them are between the age group of 15 to 30. Half of them are students who also want to work. 70 lakh of that 2.10 crore are women. Unfortunately, India's female labor force participation is very low, and most of the women actually drop out. It's only about 23% at the moment. So this is like, the broad background within which I think we work. I think what I want to talk about the future of jobs, particularly, specifically, given that background which I gave in the beginning, there are about 30 different job roles that we have found, relating to artificial intelligence, relating to blockchain technology, relating to data, relating to data science, which we believe is cross-cutting regardless of where you are. So it is so cross-cutting that even if you are in retail, you need to learn them. Or you could be in logistics and you still need to learn them. So we have created that cross-cutting kind of knowledge. And we have also realized that though people say you would be losing a lot of jobs because of automation, new types of jobs emerging, which actually surprised us also. So recently, for example, we had noticed that the driverless cars in California are being run by girls in Bhubaneswar. And that actually quite surprised us, because essentially a driverless car runs on data. And the data inputs of a street of California are made by girls sitting in front of computers, skilled by us, and they are not very, they are not like they're just class 12 pass girls, but they are the ones who are tagging that picture that is the median of the street, there's the curb out here, there's a dumpster here, 35 miles per hour is the speed limit. And within 10 minutes, they will send back that picture, get more pictures into the computer on which they keep on tagging. So that's the work that they do, for which they get paid. And it's basically their intelligence which is converted to machine intelligence when a car is running in that particular street, for which pictures he had been tagging. So that's like a new job role which has emerged. And recently I was approached by some of the companies which told me something which really surprised me, saying that currently we open our browser, and there's a lot of things which happens by touch and click of buttons. But he says that is going to go, and all that you need to do is speak. So therefore, voice is going to be the new data. And he was essentially saying that it's a matter of time, there's Alexa that we see around us, and to whom we keep talking and who replies to us when we ask some questions, that will become mainstream. And that's how we'll be operating computers in due course of time. So we don't have to open a computer, we just have to say, please open, and he's going to open. So therefore, there would be changes, and a lot of data would be needed for making that happen. And this data will come because many of the Indians would actually be lending their voice. And they said that there will be 3 languages which will benefit the most. First is English, quite obviously. Second was Hindi. Third was Tamil, because they said that the need for these 3 languages will be the highest in the beginning. So therefore, you require multiple people using the same word so that the computer can identify using AI that, okay, he has used this particular word. So therefore, data in terms of voice is going to be pretty important in future. So new things which are emerging that are very futuristic, and we need to keep an eye on them. We had a meeting in Bangalore with some of the topmost HR firms, trying to understand what the future of job looks like. And after talking for almost 3 hours, we all agreed that none of us know it. So each of us seemed to be, at some end of the truth. But the composite truth is not very known to anybody. That's also the global experience. My discussions with World Economic Forum also led me to believe that nobody seems to be very sure how it is shaping up. Everybody is sure that it's changing, and that you have to be continuously adapting. It is in that context also that this short-term training becomes very critical. And I think few of the foundational skills also become critical. So what people now look for often is, do you have problem-solving ability, which we previously didn't factor in so much? Are you collaborative by nature when it comes to working with teams? Are you able to work with teams? So there are various kind of foundational skills also that has become suddenly important. So apart from domain skills that are related to the changing world, which you have to continuously look for and adapt to it, you also need to actually strengthen some of the foundational skills which distinguishes you as somebody who can get along with others. Because I think the future is not so much about competition. Future is about collaboration. And as you can see, even in this COVID scenario, very clearly that you just can't compete with your neighboring apartment complex. You have to actually collaborate with them. The moment you compete, you're dead. So therefore, I think the world is moving in that direction. And
need to get into that network orchestration you're talking of.
yes, yeah. So I think it's clearly a changing world, and I think India is well poised, in my view, in that changing world. We have our own problems, but I think we have far more solutions than problems. And I think the resilience of the Indians and their capability to both feel about things in a very honest way and react to it and be positive in all circumstances. That's going to stand us in good stead. People across the world, I think, see us positively in that sense. I believe that there would be quite a bit of opportunity for us going forward. So these are a few things which I wanted to share, and I'll be happy to answer rest when there are question and answer. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. I mean, it was very interesting, very encouraging and promising also.
Thank
So
you.
here I go with my first question to you. There are a lot of fish who are being asked to fly, and too many birds who are being asked to swim. Too many graduates mismatched to the jobs. There is a huge skill gap. My question to you is, what are the glaring skill gap areas and how are we going to bridge it?
Yeah, so I think let me talk institutionally, that how should one bridge these gaps from an institutional perspective. And you are so right about the fact that we focus too much on degrees because we are following industry 2.0 and the world has moved to industry 4.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened in industry 2.0 is you had a factory line, and just as a car starts with a small chassis and then keeps on moving along the factory line, we have a factory line of class 1 to 2 to 3 to 10, 11, and 12, and then eventually we go to job. So that's how life was. Now industry 4.0 is very disruptive. It continuously evolves, it changes, and therefore what it requires is quanta of knowledge. It doesn't require a huge chunk of knowledge acquired over time, because that's not what exactly the current economy is geared for. So I think one of the interesting thing which is happening at Government of India level is an attempt being made by the Ministry of HRD together with Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship to embed skilling into ongoing courses. So for example, if you are studying history, it's possible to embed archaeology into that, an archaeology job role that is relevant to the industry. So you have gone backward, looked at what industry needs. You have realized that industry needs an archaeologist of this particular type. 25% of that is already covered through the history syllabus which is being taught. 75% additional is a boost which is provided to that particular individual, that he receives a degree in history that also gets a certificate in archaeology by that 75%, which might be just an extra hour of maybe 200 hours, but that's really going to make it marketable. So I think what's really happening is you will have a foundational skill, but you're going to have a skill certification that makes you employable. And I think that's where we need to head for. And there are also job roles where essentially at the end of skilling or at the end of your education, you will be requested to do an on-the-job training so that you learn the job on the soft floor, so and then you go to the market fully prepared. So that's also happening. So I think the new Indian education policy is changing emphasis, changing gears. In the future, I think we'll see all of these which I'm talking about, and that will make us much more employable. Partially, I think we are all, I think, still affected by the British mindset. When they came to India, I think we were all good, skilled people. But when they came to India, they needed clerks because they had officers who came from London, but they needed a lot of people to work with them. And they made us a country of clerks, honestly. And we have just gone on forward from there. Everybody wants to do a government job, but that's not how we were. And I guess if you look at our past, I think all the things that we have made, all the things we are known for, shows the level of skills we had. We're extremely capable and skilled people, and we are going to go back to that. as soon as our education system evolves itself.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You're talking of IoT, you're talking of Industry 4.0, but majority of our people in India, if you go to villages, they are farmers, they are teachers, right? So I have a question to you on that. The farmers and teachers are facing the biggest challenge. Post-COVID, teachers are feeling the heat as online classes are eating away their pie. What plan do you have for farmers and teachers, and how do they reinvent? How do you help them to reinvent?
Yeah, so I think this is a big challenge for India. So I was looking at the bottom 25% of India. The lowest income quartile, and the lowest income quartile earns 26,000 rupee or less at this point. This is PLFS data of 2017. And I think in this changing world, few things which is inevitable is that agriculture, the nature of agriculture will change. Whether, no matter how hard we try, we can maybe slow it down, but it will not, whichever developed country you would have seen, you will find that the contribution of employment by agriculture is actually very, very low. Because if you have to feed such a huge country, at some point mechanization would overtake. And also if it is very fragmented, then the income that you might get out of it will be too little to satisfy your aspirations. So I guess a lot of movement does occur from agriculture to what we have found two sectors. One is construction, the second is textile. It will occur. But I think if we apart from the bigger shift which will occur, if you look at the potential that might be there, is using some of the modern techniques and introducing it not by hesitation but by design. So for example, drones is something which we could bring into agriculture, which will make the land once more productive. India's agriculture is not known for its productivity gains. Still very low compared to many countries that we see around. I think there has to be a more focus on bringing in far more of, I think, technology into agriculture than avoiding it. At the moment, there is almost a deja vu feeling that can we return back to the old days? And I feel that that's not really practical. It will not be possible to return back to those days. And it's wiser that we help them move to the tomorrow of reality and do it well, and hold their hands, in a way that they can actually thrive in the new environment, and maybe the children to perhaps reskill, upskill themselves and go different. One of the things which we are trying to do is, with the help of a US technology company, we are trying to see that can we create a Google Map equivalent of skills. So essentially saying that if I'm traveling from, let's say, Nirvana country to Connaught Place, there are lots of roads on the way that I see. Google Maps shows me just one road that I need to travel. But as I pass along that road, I can look at my left and I can look at my right, and I can see it in my map that given where I am currently with my skills, nearest to me is this job. So in some sense, if you really wanted to switch over to a new job, given all the skills that you acquired over time, you would find what is it which is nearest to you. So that enables you then to reach out by a small diversion to a new job that is good for you. So this is something which we are trying to build to help people navigate the life. Yeah. So let's see if it works out. When it comes to teachers, I think teachers will also I think face the challenge which will come with internet, reaching out to villages. I think we should not mind good technology reaching out to villages, because that's important. I think teacher will have to also upskill themselves, and reskill themselves, looking at what is it which they can do better. The human mind is very creative, and depending upon local context, you can always find out something, being a little more entrepreneurial, that you could do and both benefit yourself as well as benefit others. So I think that mindset of being entrepreneurial in whatever you do, that's something we need to inculcate at the lowest level, basically the village levels and the rural India. So that's what I would be my answer.
Okay. Mr. Barnwal, a very senior IS officer, he has a question for you. So can we just unmute Mr. Barnwal, please? Can we unmute Mr. Barnwal, please? Ganesh,
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
please go on, sir.
Uh, I have a small question. I was just, before this, the question which was asked to you was about the skill gap. And rightly you said if we embed this skilling right in the curriculum, I think to a large extent we will be able to bridge that gap. The second question which is coming to my mind is, we are skilling people, we are preparing people with certain skills to serve the industry. But there is a huge, locational disconnect that industry is, somewhere else, people are somewhere else. And people with
Perfect.
the skills need to migrate to the place where the industry is. And somehow the industry is not migrating to the place where the skills are. And that is what we recently faced in this problem of COVID, where large number of people migrated to their original places with their skills, leaving the industry. And as the experts are suggesting that in future such situations might arise quite more often, or maybe regularly. In such cases, if people start feeling that they need to go back to origin, and people with the skills have not only traveled within the country from one place to another skill place, even outside the country. And in present situation, a lot of people even from abroad are coming back to India. People from big cities in India are coming back to villages. How do you think we can address this issue, that wherever we skill, we try to pull the industry also in that area, so that great dislocation doesn't take place? And if at all it takes place, it doesn't result to a situation where in case of this kind of crisis, people will have to go back, and which will disrupt suddenly and probably will not have solution at that point.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil, for that wonderful question.
Sir, before you answer, I have a very similar question, but with slight inputs. So probably you can answer both the question at the same time. Sir, migrant laborers are facing a very tough time. They are coming back to their hometown. However, their skill market is somewhere else and not the hometown. So how do we bring the market to hometown so that the PM's Atmanirbharta mission is practiced at the village level? So very similar to what Mr. Banwal was saying. So you can answer both these questions in one go.
Okay, so yeah, thank you so much. So I'll try to put my view. I don't know if I can answer it entirely because it's a complex thing, but I will share my thoughts with you on what I believe could be potential way of looking at it and also seeking solution in a particular direction. Firstly, I think when we look at India, I think we have to realize one thing, that India is a country and it's also a continent. It's 1/6 of humanity. It's huge. I mean, this 1.3 billion is the population of the entire African continent. So that's what we are. Yeah. So I think we need to keep that perspective in mind. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages of being so huge. When the economic opportunity arises, people move looking for economic opportunity because it's human nature, right? I mean, you aspire for better life, and therefore you try to see where is it that you can get more, and therefore people might travel from Bihar to Bombay and look out for better life, and that's perfectly justifiable because India is one country and you could move from one part to another. On the other side, I mean, you are basically moving in as I mentioned, you're moving in a subcontinent, you're moving in a continent actually. So therefore the distances are large. The differences, we are homogeneous, but we are heterogeneous. There is also differences in languages. There are many differences within which we live, and they're very peaceful nations. So it's easy. I think there could be some things in which you are caught, but this is a very rare occasion when I think the whole world is caught in a difficult situation, and so are we. Now, despite that, I think the movement within India, with all its hardships, I mean, it has been very sad thing for us. But thankfully, it's not been as bad as it would have been. Honestly, I mean, if you look at the magnitude of that problem. So having said that, I think I echo that the belief of Honorable Prime Minister that we need to look local. And if you very carefully analyze India, you'll find that India would be approximately about 100 economic clusters. If you just look at CMI database, for example, and I've looked at several, the number of economic clusters in India will be between 90 to 100. So if we can create opportunities within the clusters, so that people don't have to move very far. If we use technology so that people can get jobs which are closer, and we are actually working on one of them along with a partner in Bangalore, a company called Better Place, where we are trying to create what we call a skill management information system. The demand side from the company is coming as input to it, and the supply side of labor in different parts of India would be input from the other side. And some data we will put in, some of the data we'll give to state governments through Sunil and others that can you please put in your data. The idea would be that when we match demand and supply, we try to ensure that you get a job which is nearest to you in geographical location. At the moment, people don't have it. So this particular platform is so powerful that using artificial intelligence, it will tell you that if you were to go for this particular job, let's say a job of a cook to Bangalore, how much are you going to get paid? And you went for the same job to Lucknow, how much will you get paid? So you are able to evaluate that. I get 40,000 there, but I'm going to save very little in Bangalore, whereas I'll get 10,000 in Lucknow, but I'm going to save a little more there. So you can therefore take a reasoned call. At the moment, it's more guesswork, right? And you end up reaching Bangalore and then finding, oh my God, this is a very expensive city. I only looked at the income side. I never looked at the expenditure side. So we're trying to create platforms that enables matching the two, so that informed decision can be taken by anybody who wants to move. And as far as possible, reduce his movement, because if there is a job nearby, why don't you take that job rather than another? So I think this local concept that Honorable Prime Minister spoke about is a very powerful one. One of the biggest gain that will happen because of that is the low wages which is paid to labor currently by the industry. I think because of surplus labor reaching the towns and cities of India, this will change. Now I'm finding a lot of industry actually struggling to get labor, and they're willing to pay higher. They're actually saying that I'm willing to pay a joining bonus if somebody comes to me. And I never heard about joining bonus in blue collar job. So that's leading to better bargaining power because less number of people are more likely to move from rural to urban. And I think we should try and retain as many people in rural by giving them opportunity. So that's what I feel. And I think one essential thing to do, and this is more for individuals rather than for government, because we look at government for everything, is promoting entrepreneurship in a big way. And government can do training and skilling in entrepreneurship, but the actual amount of money that is needed for a nano entrepreneur in a village is about 50,000 to 75,000. Government public money cannot go into entrepreneurship because by nature entrepreneurship fails, and government money cannot fail because it's a public money. There is a lot of things which public servants have to answer for if that money fails. So therefore, globally, you will find that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of philanthropists actually step in, and they support the local youth. They provide capital to the local youth. They act like local venture capitalists, but a social venture capitalist who is not there for fleecing, but basically supporting. I think that culture where community begins to support youth, by putting in some money. And I know that in some of the caste-based community, this happens automatically, but it is not common. Now, it's not common as a society. And we need to convert that as a society, that we need to support people that are around us saying that, okay, here is a 75,000 for you, and can you do something in your life and make something out of yourself? I think that culture is somehow missing, and we need to promote that and not look for government for everything. So I would, just stop at these few things. I said I don't have a solution, just few thoughts. Thanks.
I think you gave the solution, sir. It looks possible, provided I think the industry gives enough comfort to these skilled people to make them, make those places as their home. Within the country, probably we don't mind settling in Bangalore or settling in, say, Patna. It's because we feel it is same country. The only point which we felt at this point of time was the difference was too much. People living in Mumbai or in Hyderabad were not so comfortable in times of crisis. Probably they never found those places at their home, though they may be living for many years over there, and they still thought to go back to villages where probably the facilities may not be even better, but still they went. So that kind of change need to be brought in, and I think you answered that way, that being a large country, this advantage is there, and if convenience and comfort are provided, probably people make new homes within the country.
So Sunil, I just want to add one thing, because uh, both of us have similar backgrounds, so you'll appreciate what I'm going to say. One of the important thing which the governments are not doing, state governments are not doing, but they need to think about is, when people from your state move out to another state, there is a need for a representative of the state government to be present in that particular state, because as I said, it's a continent, right? And therefore, you're there to a new country, I mean, in a way. So therefore, there are embassies.
Yes.
So I had seen this in the case of Tripura. What happened is Tripura's people used to go to two places. One is to Chennai, because they would people who fall sick in Tripura at that time, when I was working there, would actually land up in Apollo, or it was Vellore Medical College, VMC. So they would go to one of these two. And therefore, Government of Tripura actually opened up a Tripura Bhavan in Chennai, of all places. They didn't open anywhere else. They had one in Calcutta, but they had another in Chennai. So I think it's important for every state government, where are my people going? And then open something there, because you become the line of communication out there. Absolutely. And second thing is that every person who goes, I have found, the labor, they face just two difficulty in the beginning. One is housing, second is food. After that, he finds his community and he adjusts. So the first 1 month, he might not stay where he has been sent, because he's not found a house which is suitable for himself. So within 1 month, he says, not a place I want to live. And the second is that he's not able to get his usual food that he's generally accustomed to. So if state governments could create the logistic facility that, okay, my people are going, earning and returning money back to home, can I create maybe, thousands there, thousand houses, you can just give them and give them on rent itself, but it becomes your property and they are connected to you. So therefore, that will make a huge difference in their comfort levels. So I think we need to put more heart into the labor problem. We are not putting our heart into it. And I think for the first time we were jolted by that, because we found people walking all the way back home, right? I mean, who says 1,200-kilometer walk? We never imagined that. So I think we need to put more of ourselves into it and think, what is it that we can do?
Very good. Yeah, very well answered, sir. And it was a very important point that you said that, we can have, we want to put in more heart into the problem so that the problem gets solved really deep. Now, I have a question for you, sir. A plan is just the first 10%. You know that very well. Rest 90% depends how we execute it. Now, NSDC has a big responsibility to make India future ready. We know Rajiv Gandhi says that only 15 paise reaches the person. Now, how do you ensure 100% skill reaches the right person and the last person?
Yeah, so to me, I think I would not say that skill has reached 100% till Gram Pradhan begins to talk about skills. So I think at the moment, we talk about skills in urban areas, we talk of skills in Delhi, we talk of skills in Ranchi, but I think we need to get skills right at the bottom. I look forward, to times when district collectors are aware of it. Just as when I worked for Swaachh Bharat, then the first thing in agenda, I had told at that time to the World Bank, I was working there, that the only way for a thing to succeed in India is when the district collector, when he reviews, the first item that he reviews is sanitation. Right. And that happens, we had thought about a CM, basically a PM, CM, DM axis, that you have to create this axis. That's the only way you can solve problems in India. So you need to make it an agenda of the nation and goes right to the bottom, and then it works. So I think for India, that agenda to be set, where the Gram Pradhan begins to talk about skills, I think states have to come in a big way, and they have to own it. They are the ones who should drive it. It's not NSDC. NSDC is like a small body, right? It can provide technical know-how. It can be a technical expert, but they can't change India. Changing India is the job of state governments, and I think their institutions. That's how it'll change. So that's what is my belief.
Okay. Now I have one question from Rohit. So Rohit, can someone mute Rohit? Can someone unmute Rohit?
Yeah, I think.
Hi Rohit, how are you?
Oh, good, very good.
Please go ahead.
So,
Not audible.
myself. Can you hear now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So my question to Mr. Manish Kumar is, I was looking at his career, and in 2011, he left the administrative service and joined World Bank. So my question to him is whether he went on deputation, or he decided that he had enough of it and he wanted to have a new vision in his life, a new horizon in life. And how was his experience before 2011, and how was his experience in World Bank after 2011?
So I worked in government for about 20 years, and so I really enjoyed my 20 years. I worked in some of the remotest part of India. I lived in jungles, and I was actually involved in basically winning back insurgent youths who had gone into jungle. So my job was to negotiate with them, spend time with them. I spent hours learning music from them, and they learned from me. And getting them back to normalcy. I got about 500 people with guns back to normal life, saying that you cannot get independence from India, and but you can get a lot of other things. So why don't you aim for better things in life? So I truly enjoyed the adventure that was there. When I went back to the same place after 20 years, I found it so peaceful that I did not find it challenging enough to last there. That was the reality. I still remember my last discussion with the CM, Mr. Manik Sarkar, who was very fond of me, and he was telling me, don't leave because we need you. And I told him that I'm getting bored here because you made this place peaceful, and I don't know what more to do. So because I told him I have lived most of my life, facing challenges, resolving them. There's no challenge. You are doing good job. So what will I do more? So I basically found the canvas small. Let me be honest about that. So I said that this canvas is small. I'm willing to work for government. I'm willing to go back to do any hard thing anytime. I'm completely open to it. And I deeply respect, the hard work which people do, for which they are not respected, but they do huge amount of work. And I've seen that from very close quarters. I can say that. I, of course, do not fear leaving. I mean, I think I'm quite confident of myself in terms of, whatever I've done. So therefore, to me, leaving was not a big decision. I've enjoyed my time there. Post that, I've been in two big agendas with its own complexity. One is about Swaachh Bharat. The second is about Skill India. And I've enjoyed both the journeys. And in both of them, let me be honest, that I worked very closely with government. And I don't think so any of these could have gone forward without the government supporting. It's a very complex country in a way, and I think the fact that this complex country is managed so well, we need to respect our bureaucrats a little more than we do, honestly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have another question from Mr. Shravan Jajodia. So can someone unmute Mr. Jajodia? Mr. Shravan.
Yeah, unmuted him.
Am I audible? जी मेरी आवाज जा रही है वहाँ?
आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
जी, good afternoon, Mr. Manish.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for all your answer. Actually, मेरे जो questions थे वो already आपके द्वारा answer आप कर चुके हैं उसको. And thanks for that. I have no question more.
Thank you, Shravanji. Thank you so much.
Oh, very good. Very good. Sir, now a small little bouncer for you. Ready?
Yeah.
You are the CEO of National Skill Development Corporation, and you hold a lot of degrees too. Have you ever been told by your wife that you have not been, that you even don't know to do this क्या आपको ये भी नहीं आता? ऐसा बोला गया है क्या आप?
So I'm quite sure that all of us will lie about that, right?
So you accept it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Great.
yeah. So I mean, my wife is also a PhD, so I get to hear that often. That's fine.
So that degree was more important because we understand that better now. Mr. Rajiv Gupta, do you have the next person with me is Mr. Rajiv Gupta. Yes, Mr. Gupta.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, very good evening, and it's an insightful session, and we all are just loving you and getting all your experiences. We are aware this COVID situation and this crisis, and people normally say in every crisis there is a lots of opportunity. The real challenge right now India is facing with health issue. We are also facing the issue of migrated laborers, sir. So all those migrated laborers, those who are coming back to their hometown, so it's not easy that they will get some opportunity here. So post-COVID situation will be different as we don't develop any economic activity in a state. So it will be difficult for them to sustain. And if they want to go back, what would be the scenario? So how would be that relationship between employer and employee when they want to go back? Because in this crisis situation, somehow they are feeling they have not been taken care by those corporate industries, entrepreneurs in this crisis situation. So what's your suggestion on that?
So one is, I think the state governments need to spend more money locally, and I think already Government of India is doing quite a bit by a huge welfare package. A lot of it will be spent in rural India, and I think quite a bit of targeting is going to occur in migrant worker. So giving them that comfort that there is government money at least supporting you is an important one. Second, I think there are 2-3 things which I've observed. One is the huge behavior change that you see among people themselves. The fact that we were fairly, a pushy kind of nation where you'll find, if you are lining up, people are almost pushing each other, right? I mean, they're now you'll find the social distancing norms, people actually respect that. So there is a behavior change occurring at several levels. I've noticed people who would not normally pay their servants anything extra, actually calling up their help and mates, etc., and asking that do you need money? So there is a bit of thought which has come about where you have realized that as a community you survive not just alone, but you have to survive as a group. So it's not about just you yourself, but you have to think a little broader. And I think that's in a very subtle way is getting into people's brain. The effect of that we will see that gradually, but I get that feeling. There's only one airport in India where I found that people don't get up all together when the flight lands. Otherwise, everybody gets up together. Only one airport where I found that people get up one by one. The front people get up first, and then they help the next guy to take out the bags, etc. So I guess that change in belief is likely to come. Third, I feel that the industry is likely to respect workers more because they would have seen how badly they can get hurt if the labor is not there. And no matter how much you automate, right, eventually there would be need for labor in some form or other.
Right.
You would require them.
Right.
You can't automate everything. There will be a limit to automation. At some point, the labor would mean those who are doing data inputs, but you'll still require people who do data inputs, and they are your labor at that time. So I think the respect for labor will come up in a much bigger way because I think the difference they can make by their presence and their absence is going to be felt. And also, I think we are a sensitive nation. I don't think so we will forget the suffering they have undergone.
I have a question where I would like to ask that thousands of companies are moving out of China. At least they are planning to. There are many countries who are waiting to grab a share of this. How is India prepared for this from the skill side? Are we ready with our skills? Are we really ready? If not, what is the way forward, and what time will it take to make India skill ready?
So there are 2-3 facets to this. One is India has a lot of workers. Now, do we have information which segregates the good worker from the bad worker? That is the key. So that, if somebody comes from outside and they say that I want the top 10% in construction sector, can you point me out who is the top 10% when it comes to this particular job role? Now, there is information that NSDC has from all these assessment that it has done, that of what 2.5 crore people that we have in our database, who are the top 10% in each of these job roles. So we'll be able to at least offer that. I know, for example, that I have 9,000 centers across India. What is the quality of this center? If I were to link a company which comes from outside to some of these centers, I should be aware from an information perspective that this is among the good ones and have that information. In fact, I'm offered to Invest India, which is helping companies come from outside to India, that in case there is any company which fears that there is lack of skills in India, or for that matter, lack of skilling ability in India, then I will be able to provide them a good, let's say, good perspective about what is really good in terms of skilling out here. So that is one part. Secondly, a lot of Indians who have worked abroad and are returning to India, very systematically we are collecting their database, because those who are returning from Gulf are highly skilled and they don't have job now. And let's say that tomorrow there is a company coming from China and wants the best quality labor or best quality welder, then our record would be names who have returned from there and therefore have worked in an environment which is similar, and we'll be able to connect the two. So on both ends we are trying to work.
Wonderful. So, Ganesh, will you take the last question, Ganesh? Can you unmute yourself, Ganesh? Ganesh? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Ganesh,
Santoshji,
you are there?
yeah, I'm there. Hello.
The last question, please.
Yeah, so sir, my question is more at a micro level, that I have always noticed that there is a disconnect between the MSME and the skill that is being developed. So MSME in, like, I have been more connected with MSMEs in Jharkhand. There are refactories, there are fabrication unit, but there has always been, like, there's a big disconnect that happens between MSME and the skill development. How we can bridge this gap? And this is probably the right time if we can have a database or something.
I think the best way to resolve MSME's difficulty with skilling is to promote apprenticeship in India in a bigger way. At the moment, apprenticeship, if you look at it, has two prongs. One is it is a regulatory requirement. So if you are any company with more than 30 individuals, then you must have a certain percentage of your people as apprenticeship. So that's like a regulatory requirement. On the other hand, there is also a rule which actually provides incentives if you are keeping apprentices with you. I guess the system that we have tried for apprenticeship so far hasn't worked too well, and the industry is always apprehensive that there will be somebody coming, inspecting, and creating trouble for me about apprentices, etc. So I guess little more thinking about how do you incentivize if you don't want to regulate, because either we become very strict with regulation, which has, by the way, it has economic consequences, that if you begin going hammer and tong against all the MSMEs, then many will have to close down. But that's the law, therefore you'll do that. So you go by that, and then you find there's a bit of hit which you might have to take, but eventually people will follow the norm. So that is one way to go. The second would be you incentivize either through tax breaks or through some other means, where you encourage people to keep more number of apprentices so that people learn on the soft floor, and they begin to value the skills that comes because you have been learning for a while. So keeping both of these in half state, I think, is not working. And probably we need to go, in my view, either if you want to go regulatory, go very hard, but be aware that it has economic consequences. Or if you
Absolutely.
don't want to take that, then let's go for the economic incentive, which is always much more powerful, and therefore will actually lead to far better consequences for everybody.
Wonderful.
Very true, sir.
So we are running out of time. Wonderful insights. We are very thankful to you, sir. Thanks for. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So we are very thankful to you. It was a great show. Thanks for the time that you gave to us for making this show a great success.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Have a great evening.
Thanks, sir. We'll catch up again.
Sure. Thank you.